What are people afraid of? Social interaction. Correct. Now, this is why I think a lot of players really struggle with what to do on the front line, and beyond all reason. It is probably the best place for a newer player to be, both one, to kind of learn all the, well, what the front line needs to do, how much pressure they're under, and how to take advantage of it if you do want to be that player on the back line like we have here. And two, just kind of understanding, you really get to min-max even those early game units. A lot of people first look at Beyond All Reason, they think it's kind of a slow game. Well, I challenge you to play a few games on the front line and tell me how slow it is. But we're on Koom Valley. A popular 8v8 map. It is one of the more dynamic maps and quite small as well. You've got, I kind of like it, but it's one of the most stressful of the frontline maps. And here I am front and center. And on this map, by the way, like, subscribe. I think I got more subscribers here on the Wintergaming channel. On that Armada Marauder Rush kind of guide commentary thing, then almost, I don't think quite as many, but almost as many as the actual guide I did. So this is not going to be a point-by-point sort of what do you need to do every game. It's more of a, what am I thinking about while I'm on the front line, and trying to both put as much pressure on their front line and force their back line to come out and essentially cut off their economy that way. I'm the line of defense, alongside many others here in the 8v8 to deal with it. So on this map, this is a 3.5 max here. So it's quite a strong one, but I like putting a light laser turret along with solar. So the wind's pretty bad. It's 8. So technically wind turbines are more efficient than solar, but I've gotten in the habit of just making solar, especially even on maps where wind is pretty good, at least for the starting build, just a couple solar panels is part of it. In order to just make it consistent, because solar is always the same amount of metal for the same amount of energy. It's 150 or 155 if you're Armada, in order to get that 20 energy. The thing is, the solar's like an investment. Later on, when you get like 500 plus energy, you don't really need the solars anymore. You can reclaim them and get all that metal back. So you're essentially just taking out a loan on your metal for your energy, and you can get it back later, which is really nice. And finding the timing to do that is something I've been learning a lot. It's really helped me out, and especially when I'm on the front line, when you have those thin margins on your economy. Anyway, so I saw some of the criticisms, or at least the comments. The player cam does seem to have some jumpiness, I noticed on the recording. It doesn't look like that in game to me. If you actually look at your own replay, it doesn't look like that, but I think it just does something with the recording software. So it probably looks fine now, but when we get deeper into the game, I've noticed. So what I'm going to do is, instead of looking directly at my player cam, you can always watch the stream for that. I'm just going to try to minimize the zooming in and out and more give a bigger picture thing. But what did I notice here? So to start, the little details. My teammates and myself, I started with 1 grunt, then 3 constructors. I'll put the replay file in the description, or at least Jimmy will. If you really want to look at all the little details, which I didn't want to get into, because I'm not, I'm around diamond level, so I'm not an expert. But what I can do, and what I've been successful at a lot, is really taking map control and creating a lot of space for my team when given any opportunity. So here, I noticed that Birdie, one of my teammates, took out his first metal extractor, which made life difficult for him. He kept his commander closer to the back here. So right now I'm just fighting. This is my life. This is my entire life right here. This lane. You're essentially playing a lane. And if you go outside of your lane, you better have a good reason to do so. Or at least a good opportunity, like I did here when I came in with the grunts. And I killed all this guy's mexes. So But I've already taken this much ground. That's what I really like about Beyond All Reason, is taking ground matters. Both for resources and because units don't move so fast that they can just retake it. So my teammate goes for a comm bomb. He trades out his commander for the enemy. And on the ground, each of those wreckages are 2,000 metal. So it's very important to control those if possible. And if I can't control it, what I'll try to do is come in with the commander and degun. And it'll delete the wrecks. Which I have to do sometimes. Like, this was a bit of a questionable decision, but he was losing his lane. So, unfortunately, the enemy is starting to get some of it. But my teammate comes in with shurikens and kind of stalls this out here. So far, at this stage of the game, the north side, I'm noticing, is going okay, even if they do have the awkward hills here. The south side, Dicey's, has pushed all the way up, and he's switching to vehicles, which are, if you are doing pretty well, honestly, if you find any space to switch to vehicles, to be able to get some of those artillery tanks, pretty huge deal. So now we see a bit of a flyover, which is concerning, but at the time, not really thinking about it. Usually aircraft, if there's going to be any, will target the back line to try to cut off the economy. And then I see 2 bombers fly over. Hey, look here, everyone. Well. And then, to my... I'm not going to say great dismay, but at least moderate dismay. They target my solar panels. Which, in terms of overall kind of bang for your buck, assuming that that's all you get, in which case is not exactly the case, but definitely hurts me individually. But, well, once these fighters come out, fighters have quite a bonus against the bombers. Can knock them down quite quick. I mean, they're air fighters. They're air-to-air focused. So, overall, I have the, like, bittersweet feeling of, okay, well, they were really annoyed by me. But this will happen. Sometimes it'll be even worse. Most times, actually, like killing a handful of solar panels. But now I'm in an awkward scenario. I gotta do damage control. And this is where taking ground comes in. Because he has to spend a little bit of time, at least, retaking that area. Like, it wasn't my goal necessarily to kill him, but just to keep him so busy and so pressured that I'm essentially removing one player. And that allowed me to kind of go back and forth. You notice how few metal extractors are taken to the north, which, honestly, both sides, that's the most important thing. Metal extractors are so efficient. It's only 50 metal and 500 energy. The energy is nothing. Even now, I have 200 energy per second. So, the metal, on the other hand, 50 metal is still not that much. Because this is per second. Even after killing that, that's like 5 seconds of metal. And what that means on each of these mexes here, the metal extractors, especially the 3.5s, those things pay off in 15 seconds. All you have to do is have it for 15 seconds. It's paid off. So the top priority, whenever possible, first thing first, is get your mexes back up. And then stabilize energy. And then kind of, it really depends past that. Like, so what I noticed was I have resources. I don't have a lot of units, but I have resources, but I don't have a lot of build power. So, in this case, I think it's usually better to go advanced solar. Especially, well, obviously I can't go fusion. Wind is not an option. And rebuilding solars, like I have metal. So, for the price, advanced solars get you significant, it's 75 energy for 370 metal versus 20 energy for 150 metal. So advanced solars are definitely costlier to reclaim, but the key to them is you don't need to spend a lot of time to build up a decent amount. That's like, on an average map, like 6 or 7 wind turbines of energy, but it builds quite quickly. So if you have limited build power, but a decent amount of resources, that's usually when advanced solar comes in. Otherwise, I'd start building it around 400 or 500 energy, but I was in the unique scenario of getting kind of fucked up by the bombers, and getting undercut and having that weird amount of resources. But I'm snowing of... I don't know. That's the enemy team talking here. So I try to retake as much ground as possible, because Bernie, even though... So that's another advantage of how much ground I took. Was even though I had to give up some space, it's not like he had so much income that he was able to really... Like, at this point, I still have 21 metal income to his 15. And that's after finally retaking some ground. Another key part, I think a lot of players... I'm just building more grunts. I'm looking for any opportunity because Dicius, you can tell there's been some drama here. How much metal is on the ground? Wow. 2k metal. But so I'm thinking about jumping in, but I don't want to feed as well. Because the wrecks are usually between 1/3 and 2/3 of the metal cost of the unit. You can also revive it for power and get that full unit back, so that's the most efficient thing if you have the res bots, but... Shared one unit. I get... He shares a tier 2 Armada Constructor to me, which is very nice of him, though. I do question where he got the metal for that. He did give up a lot of ground. But the top priority is getting those tier 2 metal extractors, which give you 4 times the income. We're taking out Winter's E production. Alright, killing 5 out of 8 solar panels. I'm glad I rated such focus, though. But now, honestly, getting that tier 2 constructor, which is very important to be efficient with that on your team, aka you don't want to have everyone go for their own tier 2 lab because it's so expensive. But instead, you want like maybe 1 for every 3 or 4 players early, and then they can use that extra metal income in order to get the tier 2 lab for units or combat engineers. But honestly, I'm sitting at 400 energy. I barely have the energy to build the grunts, of which I'm still building, and get the advanced metal extractors. But yeah, now we're at plus 14. Something else to note is metal extractors do take energy. The basic one's only -3, so that's really a non-issue. But the advanced ones are -20. So if you have 5 of them, that's 100 energy, which is not that significant, but it adds up. So at this stage, I feel like I can't really help down here. I'm kind of sharking around looking for an opportunity. Because honestly, there probably should have been some more radar. Radar is so important, especially at this stage where most players won't have jammers to deal with it. But like, seeing any gaps on the map, I'm trying to dive for them, because right now there's so many rockets in static defense. I'm pretty much trying to hold the line until tier 2. I'm kind of expecting Dicius to break through, but it's been a long process. Alright, up to 700. So another benefit of the Armada Constructors is a cheaper fusion reactor. It's a couple hundred metal less than the Cortex version, though the Cortex for advanced and I believe the regular fusion does cost less energy to produce. So that's a bit of a trade-off, but I really do like having that tier 2 Armada Constructor. Doesn't matter what kind of constructor, it just matters which faction, because they all have access to the same economic buildings. I've noticed when it comes to the static defenses, so the first, like the basic tier 2 static defense, the Sabot battery or the Gauss cannon. I feel like the Sabot battery is better for Cortex. It feels better to me. It feels like it does solid single target damage, but also very good AoE. The Gauss cannon, I think, is more single target focused, but I may just be making it up. I finally find an opportunity. So what was happening was Diceus was breaking through, and so was my teammate. And I wasn't going to do anything with grunts against the mass Sheldons here. So I tried to draw the armies out of the way. And I think I succeeded. We gain a ton of ground here. Unfortunately, the EMP bombers come out, which at this stage, I kind of just... I've already been in a tough spot economically, so I can't be dealing with every problem. I felt pretty confident about that run by. Looks like it did plenty of damage. I'm still getting the advanced metal extractors. We're getting the twitchers here. Twitchers, I love those combat engineers. I've gotten really, I think later on we will go to my view, because I really focus on gaining vision. Oh yeah, I am strongly suggesting my teammate get radar in this location, because if you look at our view right now, it wasn't, well, I believe radar just comes up, or they walk into range of mine. Oh, I go. Okay, well. But yeah. There's a radar there, but we weren't seeing anything coming though. So, I see it. The map is dark and full of rocket bots. It's the Gauss cannon. Does it have an AoE? They might have identical stats and I might just be dumb. It's possible. Let's see if somebody else has one I can compare it to. Oh yeah, the pop-up turrets are also very nice. Oh, this is optimistic. I didn't build this. So, at this stage, I realized I have a Sheldon ball. So, Fiend Sheldon. Fire and Fury is kind of the name of the game in the mid-game here. So, the Fiends are to cover you, especially against massive Tier 1 units. They're very fast, they can close the distance. And the Sheldons, essentially, they don't hit very hard, but they keep hitting. Especially if you don't have vision, which is why it's so important to focus on vision. And at least radar. Radar isn't perfect, but at least you can start firing at the right location. And one part I've really started adding in a lot more of, especially if my economy's not amazing, to try to even the odds, is spy bots. In this case, specters, or ghosts. You might recognize the names. What is going on here? What is wrong with you? So this is something I let them know. Spy bots cost... Oh, specters cost 100 energy in upkeep? I didn't realize they were that expensive. So I believe the ghosts cost 50. You might recognize these names. They are. So when you self-destruct, which is Control B, I'm complaining about radar some more, and for good reason, because the radar cuts off where the Sheldons actually are. It's really important. Radar is so cheap. It's almost as cheap as a grunt. It's 60 metal. You could build less than 2 grunts. It's actually one of the cheapest buildings in the game. So, let's see if I get a hit here. I've auto-grouped these to 0, so I can just... So, when you self-destruct, it EMPs for quite a significant... Wow, it's 20 seconds. So, EMP is, it's a build-up. Like, units have different vulnerabilities to EMP. Like, the biggest units don't get EMP'd immediately. But the Spybot explosion does a strong EMP burst. So, even some the weaker tier 3 units will be stunned for 5 or 6 seconds. Which does allow, at the right timing... Yeah, you see here. The bombers don't do it as long, but of course they're bombers. They have a little more utility. Imagine if you just had the ability to just EMP and not lose the unit. Pretty crazy. Some great bombing runs, to be honest. Meanwhile, though, we're losing top. I have to bring in some fiends. At this stage of I've been pretty confident in the game overall. But looking at it from this perspective, I'm still pretty confident. The energy is not nearly as much of a disparity, you can see up here, but we have a lot more metal income, if only because... So, top priority is always those mechs. It's so important. The metal extractors are so important. So at this stage, I'm trying to grab as much of that metal off the ground as possible. Have I started? I have one fusion reactor now. Starting to build some of those, you see the converter? You can see the little widget up here. You can enable that in settings. I'm using 100%. I'm burning 500 energy for +7 metal. But I'm getting my first advanced energy converter. So the advanced converters convert 600 energy into 10 metal. 10.3 is the calculation. Whereas the level 1 convert 70 energy into 1 metal. Is that right? Yes, 1 metal per second. So it costs less energy to fuel the advanced converters. But they do cost 380 metal in order to build. So if you're really strapped for metal, and also they cost a lot of build time. Each building a unit has a build cost. So, like, for example, especially the fusion and energy converters have a high build cost. So they take quite a while and a lot of build power, even if you have the resources. So the advanced energy converter is quite an investment. But it does allow you to bump up, and that's how you do the infinite scaling loop of Beyond All Reason, is you get more energy to convert into metal, to build more energy production, to convert into more metal, and that is, at some point, even metal extractors become obsolete. But by far, the most efficient way to get up to at least 100 metal a second is advanced metal extractors. That is most certainly the best way to do so. So here, we're continually pushing. The fact we've taken, like, it is hard to balance out. It's very unlikely. Yeah, I see so much metal on the ground. So I actually use all 10 control groups. I don't think you can see it on the replay, but if you watch any of the stream videos, 1 is my main army. Auto group, fiends, sumos, frontline, grunts, stuff like that. Anything that goes in the front, closest to the enemy. 2 is artillery and radar bots. So Sheldons, radar bots, rocket bots like catapults, artillery tanks, stuff like that. 3 is specialty units, things like bombers, scout units. Sometimes I'll put fighters. Sometimes I don't use it that often, so I use the 3 key as, like, I'll split my units up, but I still want to have a control group for them. I also move units off control groups a lot by using control plus tilde. Oh yeah, 4 is my combat engineers, and my res bots. Though, if I have a lot of both, I will move my res bots to the 8 key. So, in this case, Twitchers, or consuls, or butlers on the 4 key, because I'm using them. So, notice, these are perimeter cameras. Why do we use those? Because they are cloaked, which means they literally have to step on top of them in order to see them. They do cost 15 energy per second, so you can't spam them. Kind of like the spy bots. They're quite energy intensive if you get a lot of them. But radar can be killed or jammed, but a basic camera gives you a lot of vision, and they might not even notice. Like, it invalidates jamming, so that's another way to help hold the ground you've taken, is by, I've just gotten in the habit of building a handful of perimeter cameras, aptly named. Alright, I got about 3k energy, 100 metal production. I'm building the experimental gantry. I'm going to go for the Shivas, which are essentially a siege bot. They got a rocket on the back. They got some long range. They got like a slug shotgun cannon in the front. They're essentially just a walking tank. They're actually, I think, the weakest tier 3 unit for Cortex, but they feel like actual tier 3. You see a few of them over there that Purple has. Yeah, the Shivas. Very solid choice as like a mid-tier unit to back it up. Honestly, a lot more accessible and usable than trying to waltz a juggernaut across. Costs 1550. in metal, which is quite expensive, but not obscenely so, compared to like a Sheldon, which is 400. So for the metal cost of 4 Sheldons, you can get a Shiva, which now the big issue is the startup cost. Gantry's 8,400 metal. So, well, getting tier 2 is doable when you have like 20. Oh yeah, we got one of my nicest EMP bots. Dicey is over here with one of his own. Nope, bungled. Okay, I want to know. It's the I key on grid keys, by the way. So, DPS 412. AoE is 12. 12 AoE. I think that's a range indicator. DPS 412. What about the Gauss cannon? DPS 421. AoE is 12. 1.6 second reload. So, it's about exactly the same. I'm pretty sure. There's so many stats. 1.6 second reload. This is 2 second reload. 730 range. 730 range, 1.6. So, I still don't know exactly what all of these numbers mean, but so it looks like the Cortex version, as many Cortex versions do, hits harder, but overall has slightly less DPS. So more likely to one-shot kill, I guess, then. But effectively, I also think, well, they both sound amazing. Honestly, the sound in this game is pretty great. So many fighters. Does he have that many fighters? Eh. Oh. Ah, yes. We're building up for a bombing run. I've been busy, over here trying to hold this front line. So, the problem is, between tanks... Oh, that's my teammate's tanks. So you can... So the inner circle, I think it's important to note this. Let's see, I have one more, right? Let me, select one. I always have one more lying around. I've set it to, so what I usually do, I'm not doing it right now. I actually put my factory on wait. Is I put the factory on repeat, and then I set up a battle group. That's what I'm calling it. It sounds cool. My usual battle group is like 5 Fiends, 10 Sheldons, a radar bot, a Twitcher, and an anti-air bot, and a spy bot. So essentially, it will build all of those on repeat. If you want to skip and put something at the front of the queue, Alt, and then click on whatever you want. Especially for, like, you need another constructor. You need a spy bot or something like that. You just alt-click. I do that a lot. But I try, and then I reflexively add to the queue. Trying to build those units. But I try to fix it over time. Anyways, at this stage of the game, they've already lost 2 or 3 players, and it's kind of just closing it out. So I'm just continually adding. Or we really should be more build power here. I'm a big fan of the decentralized base for the reasons we saw earlier. Those bombers. Speaking of. Okay, loot launcher. Yeah. To minimize the chances that hitting one part of the base will completely cripple my ability to continue playing the game. Oh, here's a spy bot. So there's 2 things. The inner circle is the radius at which it will be revealed. Literally, if nothing steps within that circle, then they can't see. Let's put Green's vision up here. The blue circle is the self-destruct radius. The area of things that will be EMP'd if self-destruct goes through. So, that is important to know, and that's how you can kind of maneuver. Honestly, it's pretty forgiving. I do actually think that maybe some tweaks are needed for stealthy units. I mean, you have to micro them, but if you micro them well, there's no detecting them besides having cameras or literally stepping on top of them. So in this moment, you might have 7 tier 3 units, but a single spy bot can knock them out I guess it's for 20 seconds. Which is absolutely devastating. That 130 metal unit just disabled almost over 10,000 metal of units for 20 seconds. Which was more than enough time to get so many units in position. They essentially can't fight back. They are a bit finicky to micro. You do have to manually trigger the self-destruct on each one, but they've started really turning the tide for me. As I've noticed, a lot of players, well, I fall prey to them a lot too. The most awkward thing is when two spy bots meet each other and they like jostle arms on the field and they see each other. Very Spider-Man meme situation. But yeah, at this point, definitely a solid game for me. I enjoyed being able to take that much ground. Very important having at least one teammate who's willing to hold the line. But if neither teammate had been able to really push past, like if Dicey's hadn't been able to push past, I probably wouldn't have, well, what I did a lot of, because I had so much room, was running by with the grunts and looking for other opportunities, either to take pressure off my teammates or just potentially do damage. So, I do think it was a pretty good example of how holding even a little bit of ground is important and can really dictate the pace of the game. Also, most players, myself, and I'm gonna assume most others included, will be very stressed under that level of pressure. So, a very sweaty game. This is mouse clicks per minute. So this is just the most advanced APM screen. This is mouse clicks per minute. This is mouse pixels a minute. So essentially how many pixels you move your mouse, apparently. This is keyboard presses a minute. This is commands a minute, like fight, attack, move, stuff like that. And this is average command size, like how many commands you on average queue up. So what this tells me is I spam a lot. I could probably be more efficient by increasing the size of those commands a bit instead of just trying to do one tiny thing. Though things like self-destruct and spy bots. Honestly, well, you guys tell me. Was it better to see the whole view, or did you want to see just one player perspective? Should I focus more on my build, or just sitting here with some basic commentary trying to give some little bit of knowledge? I don't know, but hopefully you enjoyed. I've been enjoying the game. It can be frustrating at points. All team games, of course. But still very much enjoying it. Learning more and more. And I hope you're enjoying watching. So, thank you for watching. Oh my god, the bombers keep going. Good luck. Have fun. I'll see you next time. I hope I made your day a little bit better. Like, subscribe, all that. Good luck. Have fun. Stay unreasonable.